Hello and welcome to the Pool and Spa Professional Influencer Series. Throughout this series, we'll bring you video interviews filmed at the PSP Deck Expo. On this episode, I'm speaking with Mike Nantz, who is the Dean of Culture at Watershapes University. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
So your design philosophy involves a holistic environmental approach. Can you kind of touch on that?
Yeah, sure. So with regard to our, the work that we do at Elite Concepts, we were talking about that earlier. So my company here, based in the Dallas area, is Elite Concepts. The philosophy of just simply taking in the entire visual elements that occur from inside of the house is, I think, kind of a little bit more holistic idea or approach, in that rather than, well, let me say it this way: if in fact I have a client or a friend of a client who walks into the space and says, wow, what a great swimming pool, I feel like maybe I've lost something there. And so it's more along the lines that, to me, the pool is ancillary. It's ancillary to the overall environment. And again, there's that holistic approach, whether it's landscape, whether it's architecture, or simply some type of architectural elements in terms of a piece of art, or maybe just a single tree that we're paying attention to. That there's an approach rather than, here's the pool, or here's the shape of the pool, pick one. So as opposed to that, so again, going beyond within the hardscape, landscape, et cetera, et cetera. So.
And how can builders move just beyond to build something, beyond that, but taking the whole backyard into account?
Yeah, and so my background again kind of takes us back further into architecture, and I studied to be an architect early on in school, and I moved away from that. But that little sliver of education sort of brought me to that. We want to try to incorporate all of the architecture, all of the surroundings, and just bring it all into one space. But going back to your question of what does how do others come by that and be able to develop that skill set is through education. And the main piece of the education is within Watershapes University is our study in architecture. So there's classes, for instance, that we're doing at the Southwest Pool and Spa Show upcoming, that we're studying the history of water and architecture. And we also have classes on architectural styles, materials, etc. And so it's those types of things, if you don't already have an idea or background in architecture, that you can actually come and learn within our long programs and get a better, firmer understanding of those things. And again, looking historically of how water's been used in architecture and kind of key off of that. And again, that kind of helps just add those arrows into the quiver for whenever that opportunity comes up to maybe pull from one of those ideas and incorporate it into your work. So education, long story short, education.
Yes, and that's what the show is about too.
Absolutely.
Being able to educate as well as network and all that. And,
yep.
What should builders prioritize to ensure that the outdoor living environment blends seamlessly into the backyard, the landscape?
Again, that it's really about, at the end of the day, about materials. So whether or not you're able to, again, architecturally apply the various materials that go from one element to the other, and we call it joinery or transitional aspects of the overall design piece. And within that, there's never, in my work, for instance, there's never one particular thing that's a go-to. It's dictated by that particular space. Everything that I do is custom. We don't do a high volume, and so therefore there's not a ABC pattern that we use on every project and we shoehorn it in there. No, it really is the environment speaks to me and kind of tells us what to do. If there's a lot of lawn and a lot of turf and greenery, and then so we might use that. If there's a lot of hardscapes, we may use that and soften it with some greenery. There's just a number of things to do, but again, every project is different, but there again goes back to that idea of having a quiver full of arrows that I can pull out whichever one is needed at that particular time. And so the educational piece will help solve that problem.
So there's options, but through learning, you'll be able to narrow it down.
You can figure it out. Yeah. Exactly.
Any trends that they should be prioritizing?
There's a ton of trends in the industry. There always has been. I'm 33 years now into this industry and designing and building these things from day one. I borrow a term from a famous architect by the name of John Lautner, which we've named the Lautner Edge after within our work nowadays. But John Lautner had a statement. He says, "I don't do styles." And rather than just copy that, I've kind of taken that and twisted it up a little bit more. But my particular work, I feel like it exists in a time and a place for it to exist. And so, to me, the trend thing doesn't really apply. However, we see it again and again in the various elements, and from the early 1990s negative edge to the coming into the 2000s of the perimeter overflow, and now we're into the mid to late 2000s that are 2010 and beyond. Well, it's probably sooner than that, but we see the proliferation of acrylic panels, for instance, and so all of those things exist. I did a design class a few years ago, and part of the final project was create something that has no budget. And so within that, 90% of the classroom injected or put in the acrylic panel into their design. And to me, again, it's just a trendy thing that I wasn't a big fan of, and stated so, not knocking acrylic panels by any means. It's just, is it really called for? So I really encourage designers to pay close attention to the client's needs and wants and desires, and then you bring something forward that they didn't know that they could have. And so it's not always an acrylic panel, right? It could be a number of different things. And so that's, again, trends just almost annoy me whenever I see too much of one thing. So let the space speak to you and sort of roll with that, and I think that'll serve you better than just paying attention to the recent trend. And it doesn't date the thing as well, so that's what you don't want.
Words to live by.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you very much for joining us.
You're very welcome. Thank you.